Cape Scott Provincial Park is located at the northwestern tip of Vancouver Island. The main trail from the parking lot to the Cape Scott Lighthouse is 23.6 kilometers one way or 47.2 kilometers return, not including side trips such as the one I took to Josef Bay. The trail is rated as moderate. It has long, flat stretches of boardwalk, muddy bogs, and rooty forest terrain. It's not a technical hike, but it can be physically demanding due to the distance and potentially slippery sections. This was my first solo backpacking trip. My itinerary was: Day 1, hike to Nels, Bight. Day 2, day hike to the Cape Scott Lighthouse. Day 3, hike to Josef Bay so I wouldn't have to get up as early to catch the shuttle. Day 4, hike to the Trailhead. This video will cover a section-by-section guide on what to expect for the trail. I will also provide a short description of the history of the area in this video. The estimated times on the BC Parks website aligned nearly spot on with my hiking time. Perhaps this means I've graduated from being a slow hiker to being an average hiker. The BC Parks website has an excellent map that outlines many of the points of interest along the trail. I point out some, but not all of these points in the video. Reaching the trailhead takes at least 1.5 to 2 hours of driving, most of it on an industrial gravel road. When I visited, the road was in great shape and accessible for two-wheel drive low-clearance vehicles. However, conditions can change quickly. The shuttle driver told me that just 2 weeks earlier, the road was full of massive potholes. Be sure to check out current trail conditions before heading on the road. If you decide to drive, bring a spare tire and make sure you know how to change it. You can check trail reports on hiking apps such as AllTrails or in local hiking Facebook groups. The parking lot is large but fills up quickly in the summer, especially on weekends. If you're planning an overnight hike, consider using the Cape Scott Water Taxi Van Shuttle. You'll need to call or email ahead to reserve a spot. There is an outhouse and covered picnic area available at the trailhead. If you choose to camp, camping fees are $10 per person per night as of 2025. You can pay online through the BC Parks website or pay with cash at the trailhead. Camping is first come, first serve. The start of the trail is wide and flat and easy walking. At the sign Junction, turn right to follow the Cape Scott Trail and left to head towards Josef Bay. A lot of this section is on boardwalk, and when I was there, much of it had just been replaced. It was dry during my trip out, but wet and slippery during my trip back in, which slowed me down. Shortly after crossing the bridge, you will arrive at Eric Lake Campground. Eric Lake Campground has 11 tent pads connected by boardwalk, a bear cache, outhouse, and easy access to the lake for water. It's a great first night option for newer backpackers or those getting a late start. It is 3 kilometers to Eric Lake and took me 1 hour from the trailhead. From Eric Lake, the trail gets rougher and muddier. There's a mix of boardwalk and rooty, uneven terrain. We will cross a large bridge over Fisherman River and arrive at the campsite. Fisherman River has 2 tent pads, an outhouse, and a bear cache. Water is available, but the trail I found to collect it was steep and overgrown. When I was there in June 2025, they appeared to be constructing more tent pads. It is 9.3 kilometers to Fisherman River and took me 3 hours from the trailhead. After Fisherman River, you will transition into coastal bog with lots of boardwalk. So much boardwalk. I know the guidebooks say that there's a lot of boardwalk on this hike, but you really don't think about how much boardwalk there is until you are walking on boardwalk hour after hour. A short side trail before the Nels Nissen Junction leads to the grave of a young boy William who died of tetanus in 1906. He was the adopted son of Carl Christensen, a teacher from the Danish colony. At the junction, head left towards Nels Bight. Going straight will take you toward Nissen Bight and the North Coast Trail. Shortly past the junction is the old Spencer Farm. A faint side trail leads to an old tractor, one of the first machines used in the settlement. The Hansen Lagoon was once the heart of the Danish colony. You'll see remnants of fence posts built over 100 years ago. The Danish built a dike across the Hansen Lagoon in an attempt to shape the land for agriculture. The project took a year, but the day it was completed, a powerful storm and high tide destroyed the entire structure. You can take a trail to view the remnants of the first dike and the second dike. However, you have to climb over a very deep drainage ditch. Since I was hiking solo and had a wrist injury, I did not feel comfortable exploring this part of the trail by myself. Eventually, you will arrive at Nels Bight. Nels Bight is one of the most popular campgrounds in the park. It features over 2 kilometers of sandy beach, multiple outhouses, bear caches, a ranger cabin, and a water source at the far end of the beach. It is 16.8 kilometers from the trailhead to Nels Bight, and it took me 6 hours to get there, 6.5 hours including breaks. Bear cache and outhouse locations included. Near the trail entrance, close to where the forest meets the beach, there's a bear cache and an outhouse. Shortly after the trail entrance, there is another bear cache and outhouse. Midway down the beach, roughly halfway along the main stretch of sand, there is a bear cache but no outhouse. And at the far end of the beach, there's another bear cache near the watering hole. To get to the watering hole, you will cross a small tidal stream. Keep your eyes open for signage that marks the location of the water, and follow the signs to find the watering hole. Up on an overgrown path, I found a boarded-up old outhouse, but there is no outhouse here now. Camping can get busy on summer weekends, but there is plenty of space along the beach. On night 1, I camped at Nels Bight. It was a great base camp for hiking to the Cape Scott Lighthouse. On day 2, I hiked to the Cape Scott Lighthouse. From Nels Bight, head towards the watering hole. Don't go into the forest at the watering hole. Continue walking along the beach. Watch for a marker that indicates where to re-enter the forest. This section of trail was very slippery when I passed through. Eventually, you'll exit onto Experiment Bight, a quiet, beautiful beach with no formal camping facilities. From there, the trail continues through an easy forest section. Eventually, you will arrive at Guise Bay. Guise Bay is another sandy beach with camping, a bear cache, an outhouse, and a seasonal creek. It is breathtakingly beautiful. It is 20.7 kilometers from the trailhead to Guise Bay and took me 1 hour from Nels Bight. According to BC Parks, it takes about 7 hours to get here from the trailhead. You will walk through a short grassy section before re-entering the forest. Keep your eyes out for a side trail to the sea stacks. It was narrow and overgrown but well marked. It took me about 10 minutes each way. At the end of the trail, the Cape Scott Lighthouse offers picnic tables and usually beautiful, fresh, clean drinking water from a tap behind one of the homes. Visitors can climb the lighthouse for a panoramic view. Make sure to sign the guest book before you leave. The Cape Scott Lighthouse is 23.6 kilometers from the trailhead. It took me just over 2 hours to get here from Nels Bight. According to BC Parks, the Cape Scott Lighthouse is 8 hours from the trailhead. From Nels Bight, the return trip to the Cape Scott Lighthouse took 4 hours, not including a long break at the lighthouse. I camped again at Nels Bight on the second night of my trip. On the third day, I departed Nels Bight and headed towards San Josef Bay. The Cape Scott Trail has a rich and interesting history that I've done my best to summarize. For more details, I highly recommend reading Cape Scott and the North Coast Trail by Maria Bremner. For thousands of years, the Cape Scott region was home to First Nations who lived sustainably off the land and sea. This area is part of the traditional territory of the Kwakwaka'wakw peoples. European contact brought diseases, including smallpox and tuberculosis, which severely reduced their population. The fur trade was devastating to local wildlife, with the sea otter population falling almost to extinction. Eventually, the First Nations people were forced off their land, and there is no longer a permanent Indigenous community at Cape Scott. In the late 1800s, Cape Scott became the site of a short-lived but ambitious Danish settlement. In 1894, fisherman Rasmus Hansen arrived at what's now Hansen Lagoon and saw the area's potential. Along with a small group of fellow Danes, he helped establish a self-governing colony based on farming, fishing, and community life. Despite all their hard work, the colony struggled. Supplies were brought in by boat, but the rough seas and lack of a protected harbor made this unreliable. And although the government had promised to build a road, it never materialized. Without reliable transportation, it was almost impossible to get goods in or produce out. Still, the settlers persevered for over a decade. Some of the old telegraph lines, fence posts, and corduroy roads from this time are still visible on the trail today. After most of the Danish settlers left around 1907, a second wave of homesteaders arrived in the 1910s. This group was more diverse: Canadians, Americans, and Europeans, and by 1912 the population had grown to more than 600 people. A community hall and classroom were built, and social life flourished with fairs, dances, and community meetings. But the same issue persisted: isolation, transportation problems, and extreme weather. by 1917, most of the settlers had moved on. You can still see the remnants of houses, tools, and equipment. However, much of the settlement has been reclaimed by the forest. I'm not going to go into everything you need on this trail, but wanted to highlight a few pieces of gear. I did find gaiters were helpful as it was very muddy. I did not use hiking poles because I was healing from a wrist injury. However, other hikers told me the poles saved them a few times on the slippery boardwalk. Finally, it is important to carry bear spray and be bear aware. Cape Scott Provincial Park has an active bear population. Don't tell my mom that this was the view from my tent. On the fourth day, I had a short hike out from Josef Bay to the Trailhead. I was filled with a grand sense of accomplishment. I know it's not the hardest trail, but I did it, and I did it alone. And it may not mean something to everyone, but it meant something to me. Thanks for watching this trail guide. Please like and subscribe for more backpacking trips on Vancouver Island.